Hi everyone, it's Jess Minigbach, and this is my week 6 data collection presentation about observations. So the first question, how would you describe this data collection technique and what processes and procedures are unique to this technique? So observations allow teachers to take a more intentional, reflective look at their classrooms. As teachers, we're constantly looking around about what's going on in our classroom, and we just have to be careful that this doesn't fall into a passive watching pattern when we're doing observations, and that it is more intentional and we're looking at a specific behavior or trying to answer a specific question. So when we're conducting observations, these fall under structured and unstructured observations. So when it's structured, the observer only focuses on the observation. So you're sitting, you are writing notes the whole time, you're focused on watching a group or a specific student. And the unstructured observations, when the observer is fluently moving between events as new actions occur. If you're looking for desired behaviors, you might gravitate towards students who are displaying those behaviors in order to collect data on them. And I find the opportunities to observe very impactful. Recently, because of all the COVID structures of teaching, I often have the specialists for like music and art teaching in my classroom during my prep time. So there are times where I'll sit in the back of my room and just be working, and I have a chance to step back and look at my class in a new perspective where I'm not the one teaching and trying to manage behaviors as well as observing and trying to collect data. So question 2, is it qualitative or quantitative? And this is a qualitative data collection. Observations allow data to be collected using words to describe given scenarios, behaviors, etc. And this best answers questions including nonverbal communication, so observing students' actions, their behaviors, collecting information about student interactions and communications, such as group work or something like that. And it's very beneficial to have a specific goal or focus when you're conducting observations. We talk about the reliability and validity. We'll go into that a little bit more, but even having a specific list of things that you're looking for, having specific, writing down the specific actions, being very specific as you're doing this is key. So when it comes to the strengths and weaknesses of this data collection technique, the strengths, observations allow teachers to focus on a skill or behavior being observed. So you're being intentional and focusing on one specific action, trying to answer a question. And teachers may be able to gather new information that they might have not otherwise noticed because they're having the opportunity to step back and look in their classroom from a new perspective. And that's important, allowing teachers to gather that specific data about their students. And when you're seeing students act a certain way or having a reaction or their interactions in a group, it really allows you to be intentional moving forward about how you're going to implement a change in your classroom by using the data. As far as weaknesses, some students may react differently if they know that they are being observed. I think teachers can relate to that too. We hear the word observation as like an administrator coming into our classroom, and you kind of clam up a little bit and get a little bit nervous. At least I do still as a newer teacher. And students might start to act differently as well if they know they're being observed. If you're sitting there with a clipboard or a notepad and you're writing notes as they're doing something, even if it's positive observations, the students might not know the difference between that and writing something negative. And so this might make a desired behavior more difficult to observe, and therefore you want to use a more naturalistic approach when doing observations. So if you can put a little bit of distance between yourself and the students that you're observing, that's beneficial because the students don't realize they're being as closely monitored. And different observers might have different expectations. I think for many of us in our action research projects, we are the only researcher. But if you're doing a research project, maybe by collaborating with other teachers or in the future with a different structure, it's important that you want to keep your observations objective rather than subjective, and you're writing down clear actions of what you see, what students are doing, how they're behaving, how they're reacting. And also, if observers get distracted during the observation, this can ultimately affect the data that you're gathering because we're human, so we might miss potential data. As far as validity, the more observations are conducted, the more students will become comfortable with the idea of being observed or closely watched. And depending on your research question, it might be helpful to conduct observations at different points during the day, during different interactions, different assignments, things like that, to get more variety within your observations. Or if you're trying to target a specific behavior, this might give you a greater chance at observing that. And data should be collected about a specific topic as well. As far as reliability, observers and teachers need to consistently and honestly report their findings. Sometimes as we're sitting back and watching actions or results in our classroom unfold, we might be hesitant as teachers to record and report something that might be a negative finding or something that's not positive reflected in our classroom. But that's, I think, an important part of the observation process, is taking that opportunity to grow, because ultimately we can use that information to improve our classroom. And depending on your research question, results may vary between participants. So if you're looking for a specific interaction in a group or a specific behavior, some students may display that differently or may not display that behavior. Also, inter-rater reliability is important if there are multiple observers, like I said, with the objective and subjective observing. As you're writing down your observations, it's important to have all observers agree on specific criteria, and that will help decrease the bias recorded in your observations. The readings also, along with sitting and watching students during your observations in a physical setting, they also gave the option of using a video camera, and just from an ethical perspective, being aware that some students can't be photographed or videotaped. And during a video, it can potentially pick up background noise. You might not be aware of who exactly said what phrase or sentence, and the video might pick up other people as well. So just that confidentiality is important. So I hope this was helpful to you. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's research and data collection techniques. Have a good night.